Thank
That.
you.
All right, recording is in progress. Here we go. Okay, well, this is a pretty small group, which means it shouldn't be too scary to show your face in this very tight crowd. So if you guys have cameras, it would be really nice not to be sitting here like talking to myself, although I can do that very well. It would be really nice to be able to see some people. So thank you so much for being brave and turning your cameras on. And please don't hesitate to ask questions. I have taught this class fairly regularly. However, I usually teach it in a live version, and this is my first time doing it over Zoom. And I also usually have a sidekick, which is my husband, the appraiser. But being after hours, one of us has to be with the kids. So that's what he's doing right now. So I just have an intro slide here that we'll jump to. So any participation will be welcomed. I am known to, it's harder to get me to not talk than to talk, but talking all by myself on a one-sided conversation could get a little bit difficult. So please feel free to engage. Anyway, here's intro. My name is Kenya Arnett. Landon is not here, but he is a licensed appraiser. And so a lot of my understanding of home valuation is very, I guess, appraiser heavy or appraiser informed. I am a real estate agent. I work out of the KW South Valley office. Landon and I got into real estate initially just as investors. So we've been in the real estate scene and world since 2013. And then he's been appraising since 2016, and I've been an agent since 2018. And as you can see, these are cute little people that he's hanging out with tonight while I get to spend time with you guys. So a little bit about us, and then the agenda for today, this is the CMA class, and we're going to talk a little bit about what is value, what is a CMA, talk about the different factors that contribute to value and how we make adjustments for them, and then we'll kind of we'll actually jump right in and we'll do a CMA together, and kind of reconcile the different comparables and adjustments that we make to come up with a value. So I mean, usually we say if you've got a computer, which all of you must have a computer, if not just your cell phones, feel free to open up the MLS and have that handy so you can follow along. Because in addition to teaching the concepts of value and pulling comps, we would love to also kind of help you remember, like actually muscle memory, do it yourself, and start putting together a CMA. So if you can kind of follow along and click the buttons and at least have done it one time before you've left this class, that will help you when you're all alone trying to remember what we just went over. So, all right, this is going to require some conversation because I have a straight question for you guys. Well, I would love for someone to just try to take a stab at defining value. What is value? Is anyone awkward yet? Feeling awkward? Antonio, you've been in this class before, so I know you've got answers.
Something someone is willing to pay for.
Yeah. So value, maybe what someone's willing to pay for something. Is Vicky here? Is she even, let's see, is there a chat? So I'm just curious if she's even here. Maybe she's just listening. Okay, well, Karen and Antonio, and so Kelsey's there too, right?
Yeah.
With you, Antonio? Okay, just great. Want to know who my audience is. Okay, well, yeah, value. That's often we hear that. That's usually the answer we get in this class is, what someone's willing to pay. How do you determine what that value is? How do you determine how much you're willing to pay for something? We can make it simple. A comparable. There you go, Karen. You compare something. Beautiful. All right, we're just gonna go on so we don't keep making everyone uncomfortable. Okay, so you can just imagine Landon and I we have these conversations all the time about value and analyzing value. And of course, we come from different perspectives. I'm an agent, he's an appraiser. If you've been in the industry very long, you know that there's often a little bit of a clash between agents and appraisers. So we like to get down to like the really philosophical perspectives of like, is value provides what gives value? And one of the statements Landon likes to make is value is not a truth that can be found. A lot of people like to believe that there's like an exact number, but the real truth is the purpose that this item or thing or what you're trying to accomplish really determines how you approach value. So we talk about, at CMA, we go through a process of comparing different homes and making adjustments and reconciling to come to a value. And an appraisal does something similar. I like to submit that market value, which is usually what I would say us as agents are trying to determine through a CMA, what is market value, is actually a different question from what is an appraised value. And understanding the difference between what market value is and appraised value is extremely important as agents, because although we may have a buyer who is willing to spend $500,000 on a property, if an appraiser can't support the value in an appraisal at 475, it can only support the 475, then we need to understand how an appraised value is going to affect our transaction when we have something under contract. So for say for $500,000. So hence this little diagram here about value being from the eye of the beholder. This was just kind of fun, and the real reason I put it together is because I was really annoyed at this estimate and those automated valuation systems. But you look at when you own your home. Look, I think you can see my screen. Yeah, you can. You own a home, and it's a nice, proper, clean, beautiful home, and then you go to sell it, and the buyer's going to offer you way less, as if this is what your home looks like. And then you have the appraiser come in; they're going to come even lower. This is what your house looks like. You go to the tax assessor, and of course they're going to assess it high so that you can pay them more taxes. And then the home inspector is just going to tear it apart and say everything that's wrong with it. And then you just go to these automated valuation systems, and I just despise these things. And they have no idea because they're pulling all sorts of data from different places, trying to come up with a value that may not have accurate information, which I think that's really important for all of us to understand. This is not normally part of the class, but I just want to mention automated valuation systems. They have some sort of algorithm that they're taking the data that they've got available to them, and they're putting it into an algorithm, and they're spitting out a value. And one of the most important, or one of the biggest factors of value when it comes to your typical home, is square footage. And an automated valuation system is often using square footage directly from county because that's county record. But just beware, if you haven't already been involved with real estate for very long, that square footage is infamously incorrect on county record. Oftentimes it's coming off of building plans, and the builder may not have built the home exactly to the plans that they originally got permitted to build. Or maybe they added on or subtracted something, or years later someone might have added an addition or finished a basement or done something with a property, and county doesn't have record of it. So a square footage is extremely important to actually verify. And then number two, they don't have, here in Utah, we're a non-disclosure state. So we do not disclose sales values. We do disclose in the like your note in the county record, the deed that gets recorded against the property. We do disclose the loan amount. And so here in Utah, it's extremely hard for these automated valuation systems to actually know how much a home sold for. So they're just making their best guess based on the loan amount, and then using the square footage that is available. And they have no idea the condition of the home, and there's just so many factors that affect value that these automated valuation systems just don't know. So that's also what makes us as real estate professionals valuable and important, is that we have access to this data, and we can understand through our experience the differences in values and condition, or even sometimes crossing a major road could be a huge difference in value between two different homes. So anyway, oh, I sort of skipped over this, but what I wanted to say earlier, when it comes to market value versus appraised value, obviously one of the most important differences is that let's see, how do I put this? We use the definition of value of what a buyer or what someone is willing to pay. And then I would add in willing and able to pay for a home, for example, because if they don't have cash, they are not able to pay over appraised value. And so, how I guess a cash buyer, they can pay whatever they want. It doesn't matter what the house is worth. They can pay 500,000 or $525,000 for this fictional home that we have on the screen here. But if they do want to purchase with the bank's money, then they're stuck with appraised value, which we're kind of going to go through the process to show you what that means. Okay, I've been talking for a minute. Any questions? Nothing? Okay. Okay, so this range here is to demonstrate what we mean when we say that value is not a truth that can be found. So you could come in and call in, 50 different appraisers and agents, and they're going to pull comparables and they're going to make their adjustments, and they're gonna typically it's gonna look like a bell curve where the majority of them are gonna come in a price, in a certain area, but then there's going to be outliers because really value it's really an opinion. This is where we get philosophical too. Where Lad and I sit here and talk about, well, what is value? It's someone's opinion. It's the way they view it. It's what's useful to them, how they can use the house. So we just want to like emphasize the fact that an appraisal might come in at exactly $500,000, but there's justification probably anywhere from 475 to 525. And that's also helpful for us to understand when we're dealing with any appraisal issues, because we may be able to justify a little bit more, kind of fudge things a little bit when it comes to value. So, all right. So, okay, I know Antonio and I know Kelsey. Karen, are you a brand new agent?
I am. I did sell a home in May.
Cool,
It
congrats.
was a family home, and so I totally went through this. And the broker I had at the time, I thought they were coming in too low on the price. So we, instead of doing 630, we went up to 650 and got a cash offer like the next day. So
Beautiful.
I totally get this. I mean, it just depends on like supply and demand, and
Yep,
just
yep. And
happen to know
that's
this neighborhood,
great.
who the buyers would be, and like that just doesn't make sense. We can't go that low. We'll lower it, but we're gonna go higher.
Well, that was great. You got really lucky that you happened upon a cash buyer too.
Right. I agree.
That's fantastic. Okay, great. It's nice to know kind of where we are as far as like who the audience is, because you've probably done a CMA, right? Since you had that listing.
Yes, but I'm always willing to learn. And I tried to do one for the home in Cedar City,
Uh-huh.
and they were coming up much higher on Zillow, and I was having a hard time figuring out what the price should be.
Okay. Well, hopefully this class will help you and you can get some nuggets to put it together. And do you have access to the St. George MLS?
Uh, should I? If I joined, I've just joined the Salt Lake one.
I don't know exactly which brokerage are you at?
South Valley.
Hmm. Okay, well, I know that you can get St. George access. But I just wonder, I haven't really worked in those areas, but I wonder how many comparables you're missing because many of them are probably listed on the St. George MLS and not the Wasatch Front MLS.
Oh, there you go.
So that could be
I'm
worth
here.
checking out.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I don't work down there, so I don't really know, but I just know that there is a separate MLS.
Okay.
Okay, so CMA, comparative market analysis. Basically, what we are completing is what an appraiser calls a sales approach. So the process of comparing a subject property to other comparable properties with the purpose of deriving a value. So we go through this process of contrasting and comparing, contrasting, and then you assign a value to the differences in those homes, and then you kind of reconcile. So CMA is, it's typically performed by an agent as opposed to an appraisal. But again, the way we teach this is very appraisal infused because I'm married to an appraiser. That's just what happens. Okay, how do I get to the next? Okay, this is where Landon usually kind of explains the process that he completes as an appraiser, which, in an ideal world, if you were trying to determine an adjustment value, then use this technique of, let's see, let's see, maybe I just need to read what his notes are here. A paired sales analysis is a technique for estimating the value of an element of value or a unit of comparison. So it's also called matched pairs analysis. The theory is that if two houses are identical, except there is one feature that is different, then that one feature is the reason for any value difference. So like, for example, if these houses were exactly the same, you know, which they're not exactly, but one of them has a 2-car garage and the other has a 3-car garage, and the difference in value is, you know, $10,000. Then we can automatically, you know, we can deduce the fact that a garage is worth $10,000. So that is the process, this paired sales analysis. And they use some appraisers use this like regression analysis, and it's fairly like statistics heavy. And they basically try, like through this process, they try to identify exactly the difference that these different features make in value. So that's essentially what we are trying to do. Obviously, we don't have that very sophisticated data, but at least understanding the concept. One of the best examples I have where I was able to very clearly and easily perform like a paired sales analysis was working in like the Harriman area in an Edge Homes community where they have all these cookie cutter townhomes that are exactly the same layout, essentially the same finishes, very, very similar. And as I was pulling comparables for my property that I was about to list, I saw very consistently that all of the townhomes that didn't have a finished basement sold right around $400,000. And then I had several others that did have a finished basement that sold for $410,000. So it was very clear and easy for me to deduce that the difference in a finished basement townhome and a non-finished basement townhome was $10,000. So essentially, this is the concept that we are trying to apply when we are pulling comparables and making adjustments. And I think it's also important to note too, because this is very true, that a cost approach, which is not the way that we're like not the sales approach, but a cost approach. You know, the basement might have cost $25,000 to actually finish, but that doesn't necessarily mean that a buyer is now willing to pay $25,000 more for the house. Okay, so adjustment factors. What are the factors that we are comparing and contrasting that that actually contribute to the value of the home? So there's a lot of factors that will really never get a line item on an appraisal. Because if we can't find data to support those things, well, I guess I want to even say too, there are things that won't show up on a line item. Like an appraiser is not going to say, oh, you've got like, I'm trying to think of something very specific, like, I don't know, I can't think of anything, something very random, like a butler's pantry, maybe, I don't know, something that's like, it's hard to really say, but we know as like as agents, as we're out working with clients, that they're often, you know, there's things that bring appeal to a buyer that make them more excited to buy the property, even though you probably aren't going to see that on an appraisal, which is annoying for us. This is also why there's such a clash between agents and appraisers, because appraisers, if they can't find data to support it, they can't really use it, and they've got a lot of rules and things that they have to follow. But I like to at least tell agents, don't discount that intuitive understanding that you have about what buyers want, but also just understand that an appraiser may not be able to quantify that and give you value for it. And that is kind of the underlying difference between market value and appraised value, is that there are some things that just aren't going to bring value to an appraisal that will bring value to a buyer. Okay, so these are the primary factors that we look at that we suggest contribute most powerfully, I guess, toward value. So location of a home, the style of a home, the square footage or the GLA, gross living area, which is above ground living area, age of the home, the acreage of the land that the home sits on, the number of garages, bedroom, bathroom count. You'll kind of see how we treat that a little bit later, and condition. So these are like the bigger pieces of the features of a home that are going to contribute or impact value the most. And so, I mean, different properties, you could probably suggest different primary factors, because different markets are going to want different things. So like this list wasn't meant to be in order of like which is the most impactful. Like it's not necessarily like location is number one and style is number two. And I would actually submit that which one is most important could be different. So like, or some things in here, like it's not on here. Like I recently was selling a listing that had tons of acres, like 11-acre property, and outbuildings and things like that were really impactful on values in that area. Anyway, so you kind of have to just be aware of the neighborhood and what is desirable and sought after in that market. Okay, so guidelines for selecting comparables. I feel like this is out of order, but maybe it's not. Okay, so the guidelines. So once we've determined what factors are the most desirable to that market, then wait, I'm so confused what just switched. I think my things are out of order. Sorry, hang on a second. Nope, I just have the same notes in here, but that's okay. Just ignore that. Okay, so when we're selecting comparables, we're going to look at the factors that contribute the most to the value, and then we're going to try to isolate our search to these types of things. So typically, we're going to try to search within a mile of our subject property to find sold homes that are comparable to it. And I just want to say none of these are really hard and fast. Like sometimes we're going to have to bend on these rules, I guess. So if we're, for example, when I was doing that one that's 11-acre property down in Payson, I was going out 5 miles and beyond because there's not as many properties. Oh yeah, and if you didn't already see that, Terry is saying, and this is a good one to screenshot. So we try to stay within 1 mile. We try to stay within the same style of home. So you're going to compare a rambler to a rambler, a 2-story to a 2-story, a split home, or a multi-level to a split or multi-level. Typically, we want to stay within 500 square feet in either direction for the size of the home. Same thing for age of home. You want to go about 10 years either direction. And and again, these rules can change a lot because if we're dealing with a 7 or 8,000 square foot home, we're probably going to be willing to look at 6,000 square foot homes and make adjustments for things like that. If we're dealing with a 1,500 square foot home, an extra 250 square feet makes a pretty big difference. So you kind of use these things at scale. And then same for the year built. Like if you are comparing a 1950s home, it's reasonable to compare it to 1940s and a 1960s. You could potentially go a little bit further out. Or if we're talking like a 1900s home, like I would definitely use 1900 and 1920 because they're quite similar in I guess the product is similar. However, now that we're in 2024, I probably would not compare a brand new 2024 built home to a 2014 built home. So kind of understand the idea behind these rules is that we're trying to keep the comparable properties as similar to the subject as possible. So you'll kind of adjust these rules as needed. Acreage, same thing. You want to go similar in acreage, which we didn't really, we didn't give any rules on this one. The bracketing concept, this is a very hard, fast, strong rule for appraisers that we may not always follow exactly, but it's good for us to understand. And that is that you need to, so for example, if you have a home that is like 0.15 of an acre, at least an underwriter, someone who's gonna be reviewing an appraiser's appraisal, they're gonna want to see comp within the comps. They want to see a comparable cell with acreage that is less than 0.15, and they're gonna want to see a comparable that is more than 1.5 because they don't want you to skew high and choose all the bigger properties or skew low and choose all the the lower properties, they want to see a balanced appraisal that represents some that are bigger, some that are smaller, but as similar as possible. I mean, if you hit it right on the nose and you get a 1.5, then they might, then that's the best case scenario. Compare exactly like property to exactly like property. And if you can't do that, you definitely want to bracket. So same with garage. If you got a 2-car garage, they'd like to see a 1-car garage on the report as well as a 3-car garage, if not just a 2-car garage. So that's what he means when we've got this word bracket in here. So we're going to try to find comparables that have similar garage counts, similar bed bathroom counts, and similar condition. This is just a fun story we like to tell about the importance of selecting very comparable properties. So I actually, I come from an appraiser family. My husband's an appraiser, my brother's an appraiser, my best friend's husband's an appraiser, and we all get together often. And so I get a lot of crap being the agent in the group because we just see things so differently from appraisers. So side story, they have this they always say freaking agents, that's like become their thing, they'll be struggling because they're seeing things different. And so I'm the freaking agent in the group. Actually, I'm not a freaking agent because I understand. I understand where they're coming from. But anyway, so my husband was training with my brother when he was first getting into appraising, and they show up to appraise a home in, it was something like West Valley, like in a not super nice neighborhood, but the house was really nice. Wait, is that right? No, wait, that's not true. It was a normal house. That's what it was. But it was a little bit nicer than the other homes. But they had already pulled the comparables on the property before they walk in to do the inspection, and they could already tell that like all of the most similar properties in the area were sold for much less than what their contract price was. So they kind of walked into this knowing that it was going to be an issue. And the agent showed up probably because she also knew that it was going to be an issue as well, and wanted to like plead her case. And they mentioned this to her, and she said, they're kind of seeing comparables around the $500,000 range. And she said, well, there's $1 million house around the corner. And they were like, yeah, but it's not comparable to this one. And she said, she got really big. She's like 6 feet tall, and she stood up next to them, and they're short. And said, well, can't you just adjust? And they just laugh over it now because it's like, well, yes, you can adjust the property to make it match, but you can't take this really fancy $1 million property and adjust it all the way down to a $500,000 property to try to find the value. So the point of the story is to just express it's really important that you choose the most comparable home to derive a more accurate value. So let's see. How will this work? I think I'll just have to share my screen differently. So what we want to do right now is actually jump into the MLS. Do either of you or anyone who is actually here and present have a listing or a potential listing or a home that a buyer is considering pursuing, or even your own home that you would like to use as our example today? And if not, I mean, I could just do one, but it wouldn't be near as, I think it'd be more valuable if someone had something that they would like to see. All right, Vicky's got one. Oh, do I see a yes from Karen? Someone throw an address in there. Oh, we got an MLS number. That's nice. Okay, let's see. I'm not very good at Zoom. I need to share a different screen now. Let's see. Okay, that wasn't so bad, was it? Am I sharing the right screen now? Oh no, you're still seeing the same screen, aren't you? Let's try this again. Oh, look, I think someone's trying to come in here. Sorry, guys, I'm so Zoom illiterate. Cody, oh, wait, Cody, wait a minute. Hello and welcome, Cody. Okay, please share screen too. You guys aren't seeing my MLS, are you? Or are you? You do see my MLS screen?
Yeah, we can
We
see it.
can see it.
Oh, beautiful. It made it look like it wasn't. Okay. Let's see. Cody, are you actually here? Because it says connecting. Hopefully you can hear. Okay. All right. I'm going to start with the first one I got. So Vicky sent me an MLS number. We're going to pull it up real quick. We're going to search under MLS. Going to clear criteria here. Ooh, oh, of course. You're going to give me a tricky one here. Luxury listing. Oh, it's Amy Gibbons' property. Got it. Okay. So here's, do you guys see the screen? Because you know it pops up at a separate screen. Do you see the MLS? Like I clicked on it. Do you see that, or do you only see the
Yeah, I can see it.
you can see it?
I can. It
Okay,
shows up.
great. Like the actual detail of the listing, like can you see the pictures now?
Yes.
Okay, good. Awesome. Okay, so let's check this out. So this property, I'm going to start here. This property is in Highland, Utah. We were about 5,000, just over 5,000 square feet. Built in 2016. We're a single family rambler, 0.4 acres, fully finished basement. Those are like the main things that I first glance at. And then obviously I always like to see whose listing it is. So it's Amy's listing. Okay, and then we're just gonna kind of glance through the pictures, which by the way, Amy is one of my heroes. Amy and Annie Cannon are like the agents in our office that I admire and look up to and aspire to be. Okay, so I mean this is nice, but it's also it's a little dated. It's not your brand new luxury, but it does have it's funny because it looks very modern on the outside, but well, it still has some modern features. It's got a good combination. Okay, actually, this is still a little on the newer side. Okay. Oh, second kitchen in the basement. Okay. Covered back patio. What is that? Little, maybe a tool house thing. Okay, this must be the pool and the HOA stuff. Okay, so we have an idea of what we're dealing with here. I like to, well, you already have the MLS. I have the MLS already copied to my clipboard. Okay, so we're gonna go to full search. I'm gonna clear criteria here, and actually, man, I want to be able to share my whole screen with you. Can I do that? Does it let me do that? Your screen sharing. Because I typically like to show them side by side. Event sharing options. Post test. Is this by tab or is this by screen? Like if I have a split screen, are you guys gonna be able to see it? Do you guys see both my screens, like both my tabs, or do you only see one?
I can see both.
You see both?
Yeah.
Okay, well then I'm gonna move out of presenters so you can actually see this a little better. Okay, we're gonna kind of straddle this a little bit just because it's a little bit easier. Okay, well, I'm actually gonna throw this one over here too because I want to compare feet side by side. Okay, I want to have this listing pulled up so we can look at it while we're MLS doesn't like that I'm making it, yeah, it's not happy. If you don't already use the MLS a lot, then just fair warning that it's clunky. Okay, there we go. Okay, we can see this right here. All right, so now, let's see, can I move this thing over here? Okay, so we're gonna look for comparable sales. I'm gonna show you this right here. We already Selecting comps. So we're going to start with these rules. We're going to select within a mile. So actually, I'm going to first do active under contract, backup sold. And just because I don't want to see a million unrelated options, I'm going to click single family right here. And we'll go ahead and just start with Rambler. And then I like to go straight to the map view first. And then you've got this radius button that you can click on. Set the radius over here, this blue button. I'm going to look within a mile and I'm going to paste in the MLS number. Okay, so I like to just start kind of getting a feel for what's around me and kind of orient myself to where I'm at. So Highland, and when we look right here, we automatically just see lots of luxury listings. So we kind of have a feel. Sometimes I look for patterns where like you might see like lower priced homes and then you see a ton of higher priced homes and you kind of get a feel for where like some of the luxury nicer ones are, which I don't really see that here actually, because I mean I see a 2.4 next to an 8.52. Like honestly, these are all just like, well, here's a cluster of lower priced ones. So you know this is kind of a higher density area. But anyway, kind of a bird's eye view. We've got a few active listings. Those are the green ones. We've got some under contract listings in here. This one's a backup offer. I know her. She's awesome. She's my stager. Okay, so we got a feel for what's in the area. It's actually not going to be as hard as I thought. Okay, so we're within a mile. We're looking at Ramblers. I haven't scrutinized any more. Switch over here. So she's about 5,100 square feet. So the rule that we said is about 500 either direction. Since we're a little bit in the higher square footage range, I'd be willing to search a little bit wider depending on what happens. You can see right here, with the criteria that I've entered, we still have 30 matches, which is too many. We don't want that many. So we're going to narrow down our search and try to find the most comparable possible. I'm just going to do 5,000. So it'd be like what, 5, 6, 4, like it's on the other side. As big as, honestly, I'm just going to do 6,000 because it's a little bit easier. 6,000 and I'm going to say like 44,000. I think that's even. If not, that's okay. Okay, so now I have 17. So I'm just going to view really quick what that does. Takes a few. See, all those smaller ones are off of our radar. Okay. What else did we not? Okay, acreage. We're 0.4. So I'm gonna try to. And I don't know if they. I trying to get lost. So I want to see probably at least 0.3 is not even that big of a 0.5. Gives me 11 options. And I'm going, so by the way, I did view map. I just like to see 5. I think I actually lost one. I'm gonna go back, sorry. So as you can see, I kind of go through this process a little bit like back and forth to kind of see how it changes things. Like I don't want to filter out some good options. Oops, I want to do that view. I thought there was one over here that was, I want to see what that was. So the reason why I'm like trying to double check that one is because homes that are closer tend to be better comparables. Oops, I keep clicking the wrong button. Maybe there wasn't one. I thought there was another comparable in here that I had filtered out. Okay, I'm gonna keep the point. 0.25. 0.55. That still gives me lots of options. Now I have 12. Okay, I'm gonna sort through these now. View results. And if you don't, again, you can change. Yours might look different than mine. You can change through settings the order of how these go. And I have mine set up differently than Landon does because I'm looking at things differently than he does. I want to look at sold prices since that's kind of what I'm looking at here. I like to notice if there's a trend, because sometimes you can see the higher price ones tend to be the higher square footage, which is true here. And then as you go down, you start to see the square footage go down as well. And this one's actually pretty close. This is like the outlier. This is otherwise pretty darn close of going highest price, biggest size. So it's nice to kind of see that. Okay, so we've got a 5,000 square foot finished basement. Okay, so for example, I'd throw this one out because this doesn't have a finished basement, and we do have a finished basement. We could have filtered for it, but I'm just going to manually filter it out. This one looks really good. We're, well, 5,100 square feet, so it's a little bit bigger, but it's got the same acreage, which is good. So I like that one because it is very comparable to our acreage. This one's quite a bit bigger, but it's still okay. And actually, we don't have one like super close to 5,100 square feet, but that's okay. We got some bigger, we got some smaller, and then we'll kind of average them together. I'm also going to kick out this unfinished basement one. Yeah, I'm going to grab this comparable. Honestly, I'm just going to grab a few of them because these are all pretty darn close as far as comparables go. This one is quite a bit bigger. It's okay. I think 4 comparables is good. Okay, normally what I would do at this stage is look at them much more closely. But for the sake of just demonstrating, I'm kind of going quick about it. So we've got 4 comparables. I'm only looking at sold, well, that's not necessarily true. An appraiser is only going to look at sold comparables. That's all that they can use to justify value. When we're listing, we might actually, and I would for sure, I would come look at where other things are priced, which you can see it looks like that's exactly what Amy did probably. Oh no, the other one probably piggybacked off
你
of
用
her.
勺吃啊！你抓的多恶心啊你啊！
我可以说一点点普通话。Okay, so we've got, I'm going to throw some actives because I'm going to assume that we're looking at this maybe as a listing agent and wanting to know where values are at or where to list at. And I'm definitely going to take into consideration other properties that are on the market. So this one, and I might even look, man, that one's so much lower. I'm curious why. Oh, this one's not even, okay, I'm taking that one because it's not for realsies. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to use one active listing. So I've got my comparables selected. Again, if we had a ton to choose from, I would go in and I would scrutinize condition. I would try to make them as similar as possible. But for now, in the interest of time, I'm just going to grab a few. And then I'm going to select CMA report from the drop-down menu. And it's going to automatically pull in all of these comparables that we just chose. And then we're going to grab this. So I'm going to use our subject as the subject property, and it's going to auto-populate all the information from the MLS into here. So first glance, really fast, what's happening here, we've got right here our subject property, and then all of these are our comparable properties. The quick and dirty, you just throw those in there, but we're going to scrutinize them and actually kind of like look at them. I'm not going to go too deep into it because, well, in interest of time. Let me pull it over here. Okay, adjustment values. This is another one that is good for screenshotting. So you might want to keep this one, the values that we use. So okay, and again, ideal world, we have exact properties. Because we don't have exact properties, we get as similar as possible, and then we're going to make an adjustment to then make it equal to what the subject property is. So when it comes to adjusting for location, our answer really is you got to pick a better location. You should be comparing so far that you need to make an adjustment on location. That's a little bit higher level, and you can do it if there really are no comparables. But for the sake of this class, to keep it simple, pick better comps. Style, same thing. We're not going to make an adjustment between a Rambler and a 2-story. We're just gonna choose all Ramblers. Okay, so we need to come up with an adjustment value for the GLA. And I will just tell you, I don't think I've ever met an agent that we didn't teach this to that was actually doing this. So you guys are receiving some high level information here as far as how to calculate GLA. Landon usually does this portion, so hopefully, and usually have a whiteboard, and I don't have that, so how do I teach you math? Let me think through this. Well, I guess I'll just pull up my calculator. I think you guys will see that. Maybe. Does my calculator show? I don't know how this like share screen works.
Yes, it's showing.
Okay, good. All right, Antonio, you know this process. Maybe you could teach it for me. Just kidding. I won't make you do that. Okay, so here's how we calculate GLA adjustments. We take the sold price of the comparable. So in this case, 1815000. And then we're going to divide it by the GLA. So this is the above ground square footage, which in this case is 2718, which gives us $667 per GLA. And then times it by 0.25. And we have this equation because Landon gave it to us because he does this on a regular basis. And this is basically the calculation that he has developed from, I don't know. This is just why we do it because he says so. Okay, so that equals 166.94. So we would do this on all the properties. So I'm just going to, I should just get like a, that's what I should do is I should just put this in a Excel sheet. That would make it a whole lot easier to show you guys and calculate it, which I think Landon normally does. I'm not used to teaching this one on this online, so yeah, okay, maybe I'm not going to build a whole spreadsheet right now. I'm just gonna, wow, dang it, what was that? That was 166 something, right? 166. Does it have memory? Oh, history. There it is, 166.77. You know what? I'm just gonna say 167. Okay, so then we do it for the next one. It sold for 1.4500 divided by GLA of 2826. Oh, I did that wrong. 2826 divided by GLA times it by 0.25. And we get 128. Okay, then we're gonna do it on the third one. We've got 1.39. Divided by GLA of, is that 2006? No, 2943. Times by 0.25, and we get 118. I'm going to do one more. So I would typically do this for every single one of the comparables that I'm using. 1.246 divided by 2024 times 0.25, 153. Okay, so now I'm going to take the average. Okay, so that gives me 141.50. That is what I am going to use as my GLA adjustment. So if you are new to the MLS, there you don't have any values whatsoever accounted for in this column. You have the features of the property in the left column, but there are no values in here, which is why we're teaching you how to find the values. But it is interesting to note though, they used to put values in here, the MLS did. They talked to some appraisers and they came up with some very generic adjustment factors that they put in here. And they were something probably similar to this, but when you go to different markets, that number, those numbers, adjustment factors can change a ton. So for example, the adjustment factor that we just calculated for GLA is $141 per square foot. My standard that I have in here right now, like I just have a standard adjustment template here, was 65, and that's completely different. So for all of my above grade adjustments, I am going to put 141, and that's going to drastically change the adjustments, total adjustments made. Honestly, we don't have a level 3, so I'm just gonna get rid of that. Okay, 1.415. Let me go back over to the screen so I can tell you. Okay, so that's how we calculated GLA. The finished square footage is going to be half of the amount of GLA. And man, this gets confusing because Landon software is different than ours. So finished square footage is going to be half of this value. So the 141 divided by 2, so that's 170. No, just 70. It's just 70. I'm just going to put 70. It's close enough. So 70 is our adjustment for finished square footage. If the square footage is not finished, then it's half of that, which I'm going to put, so 35. This is the most complicated part. Is anyone lost and have any questions about all of the math that I just did? All feeling confident? Okay. Year built, I've already got it in here, but we make adjustments. Oh, that's something I should have been looking at closer when I was pulling comps, because I've got brand new in here and then I've got older in here. So actually, that's actually kind of a big problem. I have 2010, 2006, 2007, 2006, or 2016, which still is, it's within range, but I would have liked to have closer ones. And this one, 2024, it may not be the best, but it's okay. I'm showing you the basics here and you can fine tune on a case by case. Okay, so year built, we're doing $500 per year is the difference that we are the adjustment that we're making. So you can see here we have a 2016, this is a 2006. So it's a 10-year difference. It's $500 per year. So we are adjusting by $5,000. So this property that is 2006 is getting it's getting a positive adjustment. I always get confused when I do the back and forth because I use the software, but I'm not even gonna go there because I'll confuse everybody. I can't explain it well. But basically you're trying to adjust the subject property to make it more similar to the you're adjusting the comparable property to make it similar to the subject property. Okay, so the adjustment we use for square footage is $2 per square foot. You guys are fresh out of real estate school and should know the number of square feet in an acre. Anyone have it? No one remembers. All right, it is 43560. So basically that times 2 gives us our square footage adjustment. So so an acre is valued at $87,120 basically. So now this one, you'll notice it's exactly the same square or acreage, 0.4, so there's not an adjustment. Over here, this one's 0.55, so it's calculating the difference between, the 0.15 difference, and that is being calculated into a $13,000 difference to make this property like this property. Okay, garage. So Landon usually, he used to do more about a $5,000 adjustment for garage bays. But that's kind of become, I'd say, a little bit outdated. I feel like I should edit this right now. It's probably, I think he really does more like $10,000 per bay. And when you're determining what the difference is, here, like a really good example to kind of understand the value contribution, if you just imagine a neighborhood in Sugar House. So if you're familiar with Sugar House, you've got tiny little bungalow homes, and none of them were built with garages. Like garages weren't a thing back in the 50s and 40s when those homes were being built. And so if you have a garage on your property, like it's actually quite valuable in Sugar House. So you might value a garage in Sugar House, like especially and then if you have a 2-car garage in Sugar House, like that's a much bigger desirability than, for example, the difference between a 2-car garage and a 3-car garage in, for example, Harriman, where almost every house has at least 2, if not 3 car garages. So the neighborhood, the market that you're in is really going to dictate the value of the features that you have. So in this case, like I would, and this is a very nice luxury area. I'd probably give this garage, I don't know if I want to go, if I'd go, I probably would actually. I'd probably do a $20,000 adjustment per garage bay. So we have a 3-car garage, and this comparable sale has a 4-car garage. So in order to make this comparable sale more like our property, it takes a negative $20,000 adjustment. Okay. Bathrooms, he gives around $5,000 to $10,000. And remember, just like the basement example earlier, I'm sure it costs more than $5,000 or $10,000 to put a bathroom in, but the contribution value, the value that a buyer's now willing to pay for a house because it has one more bathroom, is a little bit less. And since we're dealing with luxury right here, I would probably value the bathroom just slightly more. So I would probably do like the 10 to 15, just because we're dealing with these higher prices. The percentage would be a little bit higher. I'm going to call this 15. And then a half bathroom, he just values it half the amount. So I'm going to say 75 right here. Oops, sorry, this one's a quarter. Quarter, we treat the same. Half bathroom, we give half the value. Okay, so here's the one thing that you'll find interesting here. Landon, he does not give value usually for a bedroom, for a difference in bedroom counts. And I think this is also one that if you just kind of have to understand the reasoning behind it and kind of intuitively decide, but the difference between a 6-bedroom house and a maybe 4-bedroom house where instead of adding 2 bedrooms in the basement, they put a theater. It's just kind of personal preference as to what someone would actually prefer. And the square footage already accounts for the size of the home. So how you use it may not have that much of an impact. And then to kind of give the example again of when it might make an impact is dealing with, for example, I have a listing downtown where it's a condo and a downtown condo, and the difference between a 1-bedroom condo and a 3-bedroom condo really changes the desirability of the property. So in that case, you might make an adjustment for a bedroom. Let's see here. What have I not accounted for? We've done bedrooms, bathrooms. Well, I guess over here too. Bedroom, yeah, accounted for in the GLA. So these are like the primary factors and adjustments. What I haven't gone through and scrutinized is condition, view, second kitchens. And when we're doing luxury listings, I mean, we're gonna look at, there's a lot of things on here that, there probably could be line items on this CMA for luxury, like a basic B house that would probably be done right here. But with luxury, like I don't know, like things that do matter are like I have a view in here, and you could, could be the difference of $50,000, $100,000 sometimes if we're doing luxury to have a really nice view versus not have a view. Look at the condition of these because that's beautiful. I think this one has a much nicer appeal. Ooh, and they've got a pool. We don't have a pool. Okay, so that's actually something, a pool is an interesting one because I've given value for a pool. I'm like trying to think how to present that. There are some people who will say so a lot of people don't want a pool and it actually brings less appeal. And then, but I've seen an appraiser give, for example, on a listing of mine recently, he gave $100,000 for a pool. So just to throw that out there, I'm not going to do all this back and forth. I feel bad because it makes her listing look like way too overpriced, but there's probably a lot of detail that I'm not looking at as far as condition adjustments that if we came in here and fine-tuned it. But basically what's happening is we have taken each comparable and we're comparing it to the subject, and it is making adjustments for the differences in the features, and then it comes to a value. Like basically if this house, if we adjusted for all the features and made it like our subject property, then this sales price justifies a 1.748 value for this listing. But we're all over the place here because then we've got 3 different others that are about the 1.3 range and a 1.6 range. So clearly, you know, Amy has used these. I mean, let me try to see if there's a primary difference. What are these ones that are so different? So that's up to the 6, 2020. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to speak to why she did it because I don't know. But anyway, there's a CMA. I feel like there's more info in here than we usually cover. Okay, we'll talk on that one in just a second. Okay, what questions do you guys have? What made sense? What didn't make sense? What additional questions does looking at this bring up for you guys? No questions?
Well, I loved it, and I would love to have an Excel sheet to plug numbers into. I mean, this makes so much more sense than what I was doing before. Just saying, okay, here's the price and here's the range, and
You know, I guess you could
I
probably
wasn't taught this
recreate.
at all.
You what?
I wasn't taught this at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that anyone really, especially from the appraiser infused side of things, I don't think anyone really does teach this. And everyone used to just rely on what was in the MLS, these adjustment factors, and they didn't understand. And so it was kind of a problem. People were just like using it as a crutch and they weren't really thinking about what these numbers represented, and they weren't calculating it for each. And honestly, I almost bet you that no, very, very, very few agents in our industry actually calculate their own square footage adjustment, which is crazy because square footage is one of the most impactful features of value
Right.
or contributors.
How do you make sure about the square footage? How do you verify
Well,
it?
so that was what we did over here where we took the price and we divided it by GLA.
No, I mean the square footage of the home. If
Oh,
you're
how do you
doing on
determine
the
it?
county records, and it looks
So,
questionable, because like we built our home, we've been the only owners, and we, you know, the county records have us as an unfinished basement.
yes. So the best thing is to take it from an appraisal. So
Okay.
if you've had a refinance done, or if you've sold, well, obviously you haven't sold, but if you've had a refinance done, or when you had your original financing done, there was an appraisal, and an appraiser did come out and measure it. And then if you don't have that, it's worth it to even call an appraiser to come measure it. And I'll show that. I have I think contact information here. This is mine and my husband's contact information, but my husband, I'll send him out to do if I have a reason to believe, like if I don't have an appraisal and like I'm questioning the square footage of a property that I'm going to list, I'll definitely send him out there just to verify the square footage to make sure that it's correct. And that's another important thing to note too, is that the information in the MLS is only as good as the information that we as agents put into it. So we should, you know, take that responsibility pretty seriously and do our best to accurately reflect the information in here. Because I mean, then I don't know, it's an unsolvable problem because we can't necessarily know if another agent put in good data, but that very much is a problem that can skew values when it comes to appraised value. Because we all rely on this data.
Right. So where did you get your numbers for condition and second kitchen?
Okay, so these ones I added in. You can see how they're blue. These are my own like personal customizations. And this is, see, these are kind of empty. Well, they are empty because it's not auto-populated from the MLS. Landon, did he put in here? I thought that he might have. Let's see if there's this. I thought that we had one at one point where he put in like a percentage. He sometimes writes these down in the middle of class, but for condition, he usually does like, I think you want to say, he said like 2 to 5% adjustments. And this is kind of going by feel, to be fair. It's like, again, we've kind of talked about sales approach versus cost approach. The best way to actually attempt to derive a data-driven adjustment would be to find data in the MLS of maybe very similar properties one that the condition is really nice and recently remodeled, and one that is original, and try to derive like a difference, like everything else, all else the same, those two things. That's like probably the better, like more proper. Again, this is like, that would be that whole regression analysis that we talked about in the front that I don't know how to do and would never expect any other agent to know how to do. But you're kind of trying to get a feel for what the market is doing. So you look at the data and see, generally what he's seeing that to be is around 2 to 5%, depending, because it depends on how much of a difference. So it's a little bit of a shot out there. So honestly, I think the way I do it, it's somewhat intuitive and somewhat data driven, of like seeing the difference between the different types of properties. And then kind of taking a stab at what I think the difference is, like how much more is the buyer going to be willing to pay for the nice condition versus the not so nice condition. So I think my approach is slightly infused with a cost approach, of like, how much do I think that it would cost? And so I have 1,000 in here, but that's just because it's my tool for saying like, well, I think this house is $50,000 nicer. And so I'm going to put in like 50 and that gives me 50,000 because of the way that I set that up. So this is just like, his software allows him to do percentages and all sorts of things, and we don't. So I just kind of put it together the way I want to. So like a view, I'm like, I might look at something and be like, wow, that's like, or for example, my downtown listing, I went through and looked at all of the different units, and I could tell, I could derive from the data that all of the ones on one side of the building that had a beautiful downtown view were selling at about $100,000 more than the ones on the other side. The exact same square footage, the exact same layout, but the one that's located over here sells for $100,000 more. So then I'm going to come in here, and of course I've got a 4 here. If this one's a 0, then this one's a 4. So I get $100,000 adjustment. Does that make sense? Yeah, so I mean, that's essentially what you're trying to do, is compare and contrast to try to derive your own adjustment value based on the difference that it makes, the difference that desirability makes in the price. So I think it's really important to understand the concept more than just having the numbers, right? Because, and that's like, you hear it every time we made a rule of like, well, you want to choose the comps that are within this certain like location within a mile, for example. But I'm like, but what we're really trying to do is find something that is the most similar to our subject property. And so that might be okay to break that rule and go further out because it's similar. And so it's the same thing with this adjustment. It's like, we kind of say 2 to 5%, but what we're really trying to get to the bottom of is, what is the difference that this feature makes on the, like, what impact does it make on price from a buyer's perspective of what they're willing to pay. So the concept matters probably more than the number, and then you just got to try to figure out, kind of, you do your best. And when it comes to pricing a home, like, we give you all this math, and we're like making all these calculations, and we're using some kind of concrete like data, but the market is alive. The market is made up of human beings with emotional responses, and so we get all nerdy in data, but we can't lose sight of the fact that this is also a very emotionally driven live market, and it's going to have a certain response to our listings. So when it comes to listing, use the data, try to get right, as close as you can, and then you're going to strategize with your seller if you want to, price a little bit lower so that you get more interest. If you price too high, a lot of people aren't even going to look at it. So then you kind of strategize, and then you follow the data day after day. So, you get 0 showings for a week, and you're like, the market's speaking to me. They're telling me that they can't support this price, and you may need to make an adjustment. So it's like, and again, the purpose dictates our approach. So if we're trying to list and we're trying to gain some interest, then our pricing strategy might be to list a little bit low. If I'm looking at what's it going to appraise for, and are we going to have an appraisal issue in this transaction, then I'm going to be looking more on the data side of things. Hey, what's up, dude? Is Dad still here? Did you not go with him? No. Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'm almost done. After hours, this is what you get. Any other question come up? Well, I've gone over. I think that she only had an hour slotted for us. We usually in the live class we usually take an hour and a half. But I'll just if you still want or if you're good on time, I can give you just a little tidbit on appraisal, like reconsideration or something. I'm not sure what to call that. Do you care to know? Okay. Okay, so Landon likes to go over this in the class about like, can you actually buy us an appraiser? Because people will always say, well, the contract price was exactly this, and it always appraises right at the contract price. Like, and like they're never gonna appraise it over, they're never gonna appraise it under. I'm like, well, that's not exactly the truth. But again, he talks about here's this bell curve. You come out here and have 100 appraisers appraise something, and most of the time they're going to, let me make this bigger now. They're going to appraise it. Oh, it's good. Easier. Most people are gonna appraise it in this area, and then you might get some outliers over here, and you might get some outliers over here. And then what Landon says is he doesn't want to come in low necessarily, like on an appraisal. Like he's not trying to kill deals, and he's also not, he's just trying to do the best he can with the data and not lose his license and have them go mad at him. And so if he has something come through and there's a contract price and it's within like the realm of possibility, like if it's in this area, the contract price, he can probably get it there, right? Like if you've got a contract and you're just a little bit on the high end, like he can still justify it very easily. But he says, if I get a contract and so basically he says, sorry, so let's say that he has a contract price right here. He submits that the bell curve now moves over here. You bring in 100 appraisers and they're gonna probably aim pretty darn close and it's gonna end up right around here. But if he gets a contract and you've got a sales price way over here, like he can't justify it. He doesn't have data to bring his value over here. So he says he's going to go all the way back to the middle where he can defend his appraisal as strongly as possible, because this is his license. Like he gets dinged up on it and has to go back and do a reconsideration of value, and then like they actually kind of get graded on how many reconsiderations of value that they receive, and they kind of judge like his skill as an appraiser based on those types of things. So anyway, so basically says if you can keep it within the range of like realistic, then they can usually appraise for it. Like they're not gonna bring it in 5,000 short because he can't really justify. Like they're gonna come in and attack him for like 5,000. He's like, it's pretty easy to appraise it. If I can appraise it at 500, I can appraise it at 505. So just to kind of help you understand a little bit about that. Okay. Well, you should come to the class again. It's better when Landon's here. We might do in person. I think the next one is like on the 10th or whatever the Ignite one is during the day. And feel free to take our information down. We're always happy to answer questions and help. We probably won't do a full CMA for you unless you pay us. I don't want to get paid for it. Landon will do a full appraisal for you, but we're always happy to answer questions. And if you're struggling over a CMA, don't hesitate to reach out. We'd love to help and kind of guide you and answer any questions that you have.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep. All right.
Thank you.
Well, yes, you're welcome. If you guys have anything else, let me know. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and sign off.
Good night.
Hey, see ya.
Thank you for your time.